What's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. And in this video, we're going to talk about bankruptcy. One of the things that I've seen a lot of searches on the internet is, should I file bankruptcy? Like, a lot of people are having trouble financially, and they're just thinking like of different options, and they're running it through their mind. They're like, if I could file bankruptcy, all of my problems will be solved, and I'll just be able to just, start over fresh. That's the way that the bankruptcy lawyers sell it. But let me tell you that it is not as easy as they make it out to be. And there's always two sides. There's a technical side, which what I'm about to show you here. And then there's also an emotional side to filing bankruptcy, and a behavior side to filing bankruptcy, because you can file bankruptcy and you could be in a worse situation because you will not be able to file bankruptcy, and you will find yourself in the same situation that you were in before. And another thing that I've seen with a lot of clients is that they file Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And Chapter 13 bankruptcy, this is what I call a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's the preview. You know how when they have a movie and they'll be like, this is the preview, and they run you through and they're like getting you all hyped up for the movie. Well, Chapter 13 is really the preview for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. For most people, I would say for about 95% of the people who file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy end up in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, unless they really deep dive and change their habits, change their thinking. There's a lot of stuff that they got to change. But if they just think that some lawyer is going to just sign some documents, get it over to the trustee, and it's all done and over with, you got another thing coming, because you could just go and look at the numbers of people who end up filing a Chapter 7 and still end up living paycheck to paycheck, and some people can't even do paycheck to paycheck. So one of the things that they changed with the bankruptcy laws, and I'm gonna expand this a little, is they came up with this means test. You've probably seen some of the people on, I think one of the couple from the New Jersey Housewives TV show, the reality show, and someone recently also from some other show that was on Bravo TV, where they got in trouble for doing bankruptcy fraud. And so what they've done two things. They put a means test in order. They used to have like a means test. They've always had a means test, so to speak. But what they've changed is that they've made the attorney who is filing your bankruptcy attest to the means test. So that means that, Mr. Lawyer, this is your client. Are they telling the truth, and have you verified it? Because if they didn't verify it, they're in trouble and you're also in trouble. This, and what a lawyer, you know how lawyers are, what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I went off of all of the documentation that they have. But still, there's some lawyers, and I have lawyers that I do marketing for with my other company, is that they will not cross that line. They're going to want all documentation before they would submit anything to a trustee, anything on the matrix form, anything about your income. They're going to want to make sure that they feel comfortable about that means test. Now, so it says here, and I just went to one of the websites, but it says here, calculate your monthly income. The first question asks about your marital status. To complete questions 2 through 11 on the form, and you'll need to calculate your 6-month average gross income before taxes, Social Security, and other expenses are taken out. Which I don't know why this is always done when it's something that you will never be able to touch. You are not able to touch. Now, we got other expenses. That's fine. They need to say your gross income before taxes, and then they're going to take away the Social Security tax that you got to pay, insurance that you got to pay, stuff like that. I mean, because this sets a lot of people up to where they don't qualify. Now, calculate your 6 months average gross income First, you need to add up your wages, salaries, and tips for the past 6 months, then divide that number to get your average monthly income. If you receive any income from other sources than employment, you'll need to factor that in as well. Step number 2, calculate your annual income. This is, you want to know what I call these? These are like those traps where they try to say you put it over here, but it don't add up to be that over here. So calculate your annual income. You need to calculate your annual income to question 12. Take your current monthly income amount from question 11 multiplied by 12. This number is your annual income. Number 3, compare your income to families of household size in your state. So it's different from each state. So some states may have a higher income threshold. Some states may have a lower income threshold. You got to pay attention to that because that's a very important question. Question 13 requires to find the annual income for families of your size in your state. Finally, question 14, you compare your annual income from question 12 to the amount in question 13 to see if your income is more or less than the median income for a similar size family. If your income is less, you've met the means test required and you can file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You do not need to fill out any additional means test forms. It's very important so you don't sit there and keep filling out stuff if you meet that test. If your income is more than the limited listed family of your size, your state, you'll need to complete the means test calculation form, and it goes into detail about what you got to do. So you can see that number one, what happens when with a lot of individuals is that they get very tired. Like the bankruptcy office would do this for you. They have a secretary or a paralegal that would fill this out for you. But if you're trying to do a bankruptcy on your own and you do that means test, a lot of people get frustrated, get confused with the form. This is similar to the garnishment worksheet that we have in our state, where when you can simply just look at the size of your family and look at your income, and all the other questions are null and void because you don't even have to answer them. You know, you can simply do that. So I think one of the things that a lot of people should do is just look at their whole income that they make before taxes. Go to your state. Let's see if it even brings that up on there. It doesn't bring up for the state. If it would have brought it up for the state, then you're able to say, okay, I potentially could qualify. So now let's go into looking at the other side of the equation. The other side so we talked about the technical side, and now we had a mental, emotional side. Now on that mental emotional side, I've had individuals come to me and they said, I'm thinking about filing bankruptcy. What do you think? And I'm like, what? Well, it's not about what I think. It's about what are you going through. And I've always gave this advice to people. Now, this is not advice, legal advice. I'm not an attorney. This is just as what I would do. And I can talk about this stuff because I was in a situation where I almost had to file bankruptcy back in 1994. Because just like other Americans, I had overspent wildly with money. You know, I had got my business was going successfully, and I just didn't, had a lot of bad habits. When you don't have money and you start to have more money, one of the things we do is we spend that money. So when clients of mine or individuals with the credit repair shop, and they would say, well, I'm thinking of filing bankruptcy, they've talked to lawyers on this side. And this is the crazy thing that really proves my point. This is the thing that proves my point, is that a lot of people will talk to the attorneys on this side but there's something emotional that is pulling them in a certain direction. And a lot of people don't understand that pull. That pull is actually what you should do. I know that sounds crazy because you're like, well, if I just follow what the lawyer says, I'm going to be able to be out of my situation. But you have this pull that's like, it's emotional, it's a feeling, something is stopping you from just saying, okay, well, just sign me up because all the debt is going to just go away. Just sign me up and just do it. Why aren't people just jumping over to there? Like, one of the biggest misconceptions about people having debt is that a lot of people think that people are just filing bankruptcy and erasing all their debt. No, a lot of people live with their debt. So why would people live with their debt if they have high anxiety, high blood pressure, all of these problems, can't sleep at night, fighting with the spouse, losing cars, one of the vehicles got repoed because they can't pay the payments on that, but barely surviving to put food on the table? Why would people go through all of that emotional and mental side effects when they could just go straight to the bankruptcy lawyer and take care and just have everything wiped away if they qualify? The reason why is because they know deep down inside that they are responsible for what has happened to them. And just like a lot of times where humans, we don't want to take responsibility for certain things, that pull, that deep down inside is actually the true you saying, I got to do something about this, because even if I take the easy way out, I know me deep down inside, and I'm going to just run into this problem all over again. And so what I tell people to do is, number one, if you are making yourself sick over the debt, if you cannot legitimately survive and pay stuff, keep a roof over your table, keep the transportation, keep the heat on, keep the lights on, all of that stuff. Make sure that the family is secure. If you really cannot do that and see that there's a way that you can work yourself out of that debt issue, then you need to seriously talk and consider doing the Chapter 7 BK. And the reason why I say do the Chapter 7 BK is because you need to wipe away all your unsecured debt. And you can reclaim your car, keep your house, stuff like that. But you need to do that, because if you don't, you're going to make yourself sick and you're not going to be able to do anything for your family or for yourself. So you need to consider that. That's been my advice. But if you deep down inside, like what I ended up doing, what my wife and I ended up doing, is where we said, we are the cause of this. We made all of this stuff happen. We need to lay everything down on the table. This is what we did in the Christmas of 1994. We put everything on the table and said, we've done this. We had 6 cars. We had all this stuff, the kids, everything. We had everything, stuff that we weren't even using, spending money left and right. Probably had about 10 credit cards. We had fell for all the cards. We even had gas cards. Why have a gas card when you can use a credit card for the gas card? Like all of this stuff. So this is what we did. And when we sat at the table, it was pulling us in this direction over here to say, we don't need to do this. We need to come up with a plan. Let's come up with a plan to get ourselves out of this debt. And what we did is we gave vehicles back, settled on the difference. Yes, it took time. It wasn't overnight. But what it did for us is, from 1994 to 1999, we had over 300K in debt. It took us from 94 to 99 to get that situated. And really the reason why it took that long was because we were kind of figuring out stuff on our own on what to do. But basically we did 3 strategies, and we did not work on our credit at the same time, which if I would have knew what I know now, I would have did both at the same time, because after 1999, I had to go through a process to rebuild my credit. And, it just delayed that process a little, having the better credit. But regardless of that, we took care of the bad behavior. See, if you get rid of the bad behavior, everything else will fall into place. A lot of you that are in this situation, that are like thinking right now, and I know that a lot of people are thinking it right now. You want to know why? Because the YouTube searches have blown up. The Google searches have blown up. All of the search engines are saying that like 25-30% of Americans right now are thinking about filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They are seeking to look at information on filing bankruptcy, but something emotionally, the numbers don't match. The numbers don't match. And here's something that people don't know, that even if you talk to a bankruptcy lawyer and you don't file bankruptcy, that information is recorded. You might be saying, well, how is it recorded? Because when you speak to an attorney and you don't hire that attorney and you go to another attorney, that attorney wants to know why you didn't hire that attorney. That's why they'll always ask you, did you consult with another attorney about this? Because they have rules. So it's always recorded. So 25% plus of Americans are searching for bankruptcy, but the numbers are 25%. That would be millions. Like 25% of what, 300 something million Americans be like 40 something, what is that, about 40 something million people. The numbers are nowhere near that actually file bankruptcy. And the reason why is because a lot of people are being pulled, even though they're not fixing their situation, because a lot of you are living in this situation for years, but you're being pulled to this side because you have what I had inside of me, where you're just like, hey, I know that this is my fault and that this filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy is not going to fix it. And I'm here to tell you that you're right. Just because you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, even if you do qualify, even if you are sick, even if you're all going through all of those problems and you need to do it so you can keep your family intact, you're still going to have to go through this process on this side, or you're going to find yourself right back in that situation. Right back in that situation. So take my word on it. So if you have the choice of the Chapter 7, on this side, what you would do, let me tell you how you work your way through. Let me show you exactly what we did and what I advise people to do. So, first thing you got to do is you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision to get out of trouble. Nothing can move forward until you make that decision. And when you make that decision, this is what I say a decision is, if you want to visualize it. Decision is a word, but let me show you what a decision is. This is the bridge. And on the other side of that bridge, it says freedom. And this is where you're at right now, in debt. A decision is to say, I'm going to go over that bridge, and every time you walk, you chop away. There's no turning back. When you get to that mindset, that you're going to go here, this is where you're going to end up. The bridge doesn't exist going back anymore. When that bridge doesn't exist going back anymore, that means that you've changed your bad habits. You're not going back there. You're going to be taking full responsibility. So you need to make that decision. That means that decision on the way, there's going to be some ups and downs. There's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some disappointments, but that doesn't matter, because you know that the goal is you're going to reach that goal regardless. You're going to reach that goal, the bridge. You look back, the bridge does not exist. You can only take steps forward. And every time you take a step forward, the bridge disappears And the closer you get to this, you will see that you will take faster steps, because you know that the faster you move to that, the faster you can get rid of all of that other stuff that's going on that keeps you in the debt. Now, the next thing is you need to write down all debt. Everything that you're paying on, you got to write it down on paper. So one easy way to do this is you can, as the stuff comes in the mail, or if you're getting it, you're paperless and it goes in the email, open up an Excel spreadsheet on the computer. Start using that computer for something more than just, surfing the internet and looking at Facebook and all that other stuff. Write it down, put it all in a spreadsheet, put the payment that you have to pay each month, the minimum payment that you got to pay each month, and at the bottom or the top, if you know how to use the fields. If you don't make this complicated where you're trying to figure out all the fields. Just put your total net income that you take home. Now, to be able to find your total net income, get your last 4 paychecks and just add up what they gave to you. You'll have an average of your net income. And then to be able to add up, you could either take a calculator, or if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, highlight all of the minimum payments. If you highlight them and go all the way down, you will see in the bottom corner, it'll add up all those bills for you, and then all those payments for you. And then you just deduct that amount from your net income, and you will see how much money you have after paying that stuff. Now, that is not the end of it. If that was the end of it, nobody would be in debt. We would be able to just go running off happy and say, now we're going to be out of debt. But the problem is that you have the hidden expenses. What are hidden expenses? This is the stuff that you spend that is not a regular bill. This is stuff like your gas in your car. This is stuff like the lunches. Are you going to Subway or Burger King or McDonald's? Which I went to McDonald's and just got a breakfast sandwich, the number 2 meal for my wife, and it was like $8, $9, and my wife was like, "What did you do?" And they had just said the large orange juice, and the large orange juice was almost $3. So I'm like, they making a killing, like that juice, and the cup probably cost them like 10 cents. You know, they're making the juice. They're not like I don't know. It just costs a lot. So that's where all your hidden money is going. Starbucks, all these places. Not to pick on any particular company, but this is where your hidden stuff is going. If you're going to Target shopping, we went to Big Lots yesterday, and you know how if you're married, wives will go through there. Some guys too. I'm not going to pick on, but go through there picking stuff. And I grabbed something. So to be fair, I grabbed something. It was like one of those ports to put the so I don't have to have all these different ports for charging up my phone or other types of devices. So we buy stuff too, but these are hidden expenses. So you have to the easy way to do it, this is the way we did it, is that you just go through a week or two, or even a full month, just depending on your financial situation, if you're able to hold out on that. And everything that you get a receipt. Everything that you buy, you get the receipt. You know how they always say, "Do you want the receipt?" "Yeah, I want the receipt." You don't say it that way, but you say, "Yeah, I want to get the receipt," and you put it in your pocket. And when you get home, you put that receipt in an envelope, and you don't worry about it right now. There's going to be a time that you're going to sit down and go through that. You either yourself or you and your spouse. So you get all of those receipts. Let's just say, for example, for 1 month. So then, after that 1 month is over with, what I want you to do is I want you to add up all of those receipts. It's going to be different from month to month. Some stuff you might do, some stuff you might not do. But one thing I don't want you to do is I don't want you to change anything about what you're doing. So you might say, well, I'm going to try to be ahead of what Steve is trying to have me do. And I'm not going to go to Starbucks every day. I'm not going to go to lunch every day. I'm going to pack my lunch. I'm going to change all of these different things. Don't worry, you're going to be changing a lot of stuff, but if you don't do this, you're going to revert back because you're not going to know the true issue that you had, the true habits that you have. So do that for 1 month. And then, so now once we do this, this is like the first beginnings. And also with this decision, what me and my wife did, we had like a little signed contract saying that we're not going to spend more than $50 on anything without each other knowing. And really, the $50, that reason why we had that amount, and this was in 1994, so you would understand, gas prices was not that high. So I don't even think that filling up your tank would have ever cost $50 in 1994. But so we had put it at that amount. That's why we had said we would like $50, because if it's less. But really what we didn't do is we just didn't spend any money without each other knowing it. You know, I would go to work for the business, and it was a pretty nice drive, and mainly what it was that it was gas. And I started taking my lunch, and also because I was going to visit my clients that had different restaurants and stores, I had a benefit. Like, one thing that they would always do, the ones that had grocery stores would say, like, do you want a soda, chips, stuff like that, even though that stuff isn't, good to have all the time. But they would just like say, hey, grab this on your way out. Or what I started doing is saying, hey, okay, I'll take a bottle of water. I would go to like 3 or 4 stores each day, and they would give me a bottle of water. And then when I would visit my clients that had restaurants or carry-out places, they would just say it. Like, maybe they felt that I was, trying to get stuff in order. Like, sometimes you get signals from people, and they would just say, hey, you want something to eat? And they would cook up something and just be like, here. And they wouldn't charge me anything. Like, I would leave a tip and tell my wife, hey, I had to give the waitress or the cook, the person that made it for me, I just gave them a tip, just because they gave me the free meal. And we know back then tips were not as high as what they are now. So when you have this is like the foundation. This is the foundation. And then the next step that you got to take, here's the next step, is, let's keep that freedom. Let's keep our focus on there. And let's get rid of that there, because we racing debt. So now the next thing is, of the items that you have, if you have cars, if you have too many credit cards, all of that stuff, you're going to start cutting. You're going to start seeing, number one, what is the best way for me to get out of that debt? So if you've been making the minimum payments on credit cards, you cannot call them up, and more than likely, I would say, it's kind of changed a little bit now, but more than likely, if you call them up and you've been making minimum payments, they're not going to want to do a settlement. What they're going to try to do is just work out something to a smaller payment. They're going to try to do something to get you to keep paying, because they want to get all their money. If you have not been making your payments, then that is the time that you can contact the original creditor if they still own the debt, or the debt collection company that has the debt. And there should be, and if a debt collector has purchased your debt, you need to run them through a validation process to make sure that you have to pay them for that debt, because when they get the debt from an original creditor, there's certain items, documents that they must get to be able to collect on that from you. And if you don't know how to ask that question, they're going to be able to just run all over you and end up probably trying to take you to court to get the money, when you can actually make that debt disappear. And that was something that we had actually did. There was debts that we, when they were sold to debt collectors, because a lot of stuff we were not paying on, we just couldn't, we thought we couldn't afford it, due to the way that we were spending our money. Once we had kind of backed off and cut stuff, we figured that we had a lot of extra money that we were just spending it and those hidden expenses. But we ended up, when debt was sold, like a lot of the gas cards and different credit cards and stuff were sold to debt collection companies, we were able to get a lot of that debt just totally erased, because during the process of me understanding and learning what they had to have, and back then they had to have less documents, but if you ask the right questions, you could end up getting that debt, that debt forgiven and taken away. So we had that process of either settling debt, having it, if it was sold, making a settlement on it. With the vehicles, we went down to 2 vehicles, and we made settlements to pay the difference, because those were actually given back to the lenders. And and then we just went through our plan with the credit card companies that we were making the minimum payments on. We just figured out a plan to where we're going to pay more based off of our budget. We were going to be able to pay those cards down, and then we at that time we closed out the cards, which I would not advise people to do now. Keep those cards open. Just have discipline with using them, because when I had said that our credit had actually just went bad when I could have been doing it at the same time, that was the mistake that we had made, is that we had closed out those accounts that we were making the minimum payments on and had paid them off when we should have kept them on. Those would have been like 20, almost 20, 10, 20, like getting close to 30-year season accounts on those cards. So you'll line up, just to review, you'll line up all of those debts that you had did on that spreadsheet. And let's just say, for example, you got cars, you have too many cars like I did, so you're gonna X off, you're gonna move to settle the debt, pay off because you need that transportation. And then you got your credit cards. I'll just put CC. So you got CC, CC, CC. So you're gonna pay off, keep open, pay off. Now, if you were not making the minimum payments on these here, then you're gonna settle. The other option too is to contact the credit card company. All of these companies, you can contact their hardship departments. One of the things that I did with the cars is that for us to be able to come up with extra money is that we had deferments on the 2 that we were going to keep. We had deferments. So what a deferment is where they'll put the payment on the back end of the loan, but the interest will continue to add up, but they will put the payments, and some of them will do 3, some of them will do 6 months. So, but what you have to do is you have to do the right thing with that money. So if you gave car back, you're going to look at doing a settlement on that. Also contact the hardship department, because there might be ways that you can prove, and they can end up doing a 1099-C. And I just had a video yesterday about that. You can look that video up. So you got the deferments to get extra money that you can utilize for your expenses. You can utilize to help pay off some of the cards. You can utilize that deferment to help with the settlements. Contact the hardship department with each of the companies to see what special programs that they may have in place. They may have you fill out a form where they'll say, okay, can you prove your hardship? And they could put you into a special category and just instantly send out a 1099-C. I showed where one of my clients, where we did this exact thing for, and they canceled out $36,000, a credit card company canceled out $36,000 worth of debt. So it can happen. Not to say that it'll happen with all. Remember what I said, that there's a plan. It's going to be some ups, there's going to be some downs, you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses. And I don't even consider a loss. All loss is that you're just going to have to figure out a different plan to be able to either settle that debt or to pay off that debt later. But the whole thing, the whole idea is that you're in the process so you can get over here. See, you're burning the excuse bridge. The excuse bridge is burnt. Every step you take. So when you make those calls, when you ask about the hardship department so I can talk to them about my situation, when you talk to the credit card company with the ones that you didn't make payments on about doing a settlement, you're burning the excuse bridge because you're moving forward on what's going to be able to be done. And if you cannot work with them on the settlement, you make them wait. You make them wait because you're in control. You take your power and you're in control. And so you move over to the next one. That's what we did. If you're not ready to deal with us, with what we have, then we're going to move this over to somebody else. And what you start to see is that they start to call you back and they say, we're ready to make a deal. And we say, well, hey, we had to make a deal with another one. This is what we have on the table for you right now. Wouldn't they treat you that same way? So this is a process. These are processes, and I'm going to do even more of this because this is what's missing with what people describe on channels, because they haven't really went through it. A lot of people have not actually went through it. They're fakers. They just pretending that they went through this stuff. There's an emotional side to all of this. You cannot even get to this point. You cannot even get to this point until you get to what I had just showed you earlier, where you make that decision, where you write it all down, and where you find out where your hidden expenses are. You can't even get to this part because you're going to be all messed up. You're going to say, I don't even see how I can work my way through it. It's going to be like a puzzle laying on the floor, and you're just not going to be able to solve that puzzle. So let's get this done. I know a lot of you are thinking about filing bankruptcy. A lot of you can work your way out of it, but weigh your decisions, weigh your options, and whatever that option is, live with that option. But if you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you still need to run through this process to change those habits, or you're going to find yourself back in that situation. And if you know that you're being pulled not to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy for the right reasons, and what I mean by the right reasons is that not because of some religious reason, not because of some shame reason, nothing like that. It's because you know that you make the money and you're able to work your way through this if you just buckle down and do what I just told you to do. If you have that feeling and you're ready to go through that process, then you don't need to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You can work your way through it. All right, thank you for your time. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please post your questions and comments. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes Us Different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website Youre, 3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores. And it has additional information that you will need to be able to fight back against anyone who has placed negative information that is inaccurate, unfair, that shows you in a different type of light on your credit reports. You have that right according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It has, even if it's an account that you have, it has to be shown on there in an accurate way. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters: statute of limitations, debt validation, cease and desist collection activities letter. Those letters are very serious, and debt collectors take them serious. If you have them coming after you, don't run. Send that, because they're not going to expect you to have the information and ask the questions that you're going to be asking. It will sometimes force a debt collector to either cancel out the debt, and they'll try to send a 1099-C, and you can watch my other videos to see what form you can utilize to be able to have that debt not count as additional income for you. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe, post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.